How was Deshaun Watson's agent able to leverage this situation with a guy that was carrying so much baggage, and so that he got the largest guaranteed contract ever this summer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, obviously, about the suspension and where things are going, but you bring up the point that still stuns me. I've been following this a long time, 30-something years between being an agent, running a team, and being a media analyst and professor. Never seen a contract like this in the sport, ever. This is a contract you see in the NBA. This is a contract you see in Major League Baseball. We've never seen one like this in football, ever. And what strikes me so much thinking about this is that this was achieved in part, and maybe even in large part, by his own misconduct. By his own misconduct. Think about that. He put himself in a position where his team did not want him. They did not want him. The Houston Texans did not want him, and by the way, he didn't want them either.
Right.
So it became an auction. It became an auction. First, they got to pre-qualify the trade, and they had 3 or 4 teams, I think 4, willing to give up 3 number ones and whatever else. Then they could negotiate. And if you remember, I think everyone listening remembers, at one point, the Browns were out. They were out. He's a Southern kid. It was the Saints and Falcons and maybe the Panthers. And the Browns were a distant fourth. But I'll never forget the moment with Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter. I'm like, is this real?
Right.
The Browns were not only back in, but they got him. And you sort of read through the lines, and the way they got him was the contract. Because it's like, okay, it looks like they handed a piece of paper to the agent and said, fill it out. Because it's got the $46 million a year. That's obviously the best ever. It's got the full guarantee. No one's gotten that. I mean, Kirk Cousins got 3 years. This is 5 years. And then the clause everyone talks about, which is first year, minimum salary, $1 million. That's the only money subject to suspension. That's the rules. The only suspension forfeiture comes out of salary, not bonus. And lo and behold, $45 million bonus, which has written in the contract no forfeiture of bonus due to suspension. So it was written in a way that protects Watson more than any player's been protected. And we haven't even talked about what he came into this deal with, the circumstances that everyone's talking about. And then I get back to where I started. In part due to his own misconduct, he created the perfect storm for this contract.
It is absolutely unbelievable that we're at this position. I have another question too around the legality of things, especially there's been some discussion around if the appeals judge comes back with a harsher sentence and it's something that the Deshaun camp doesn't like. Are they able to do similarly to what Zeke and Tom Brady were able to do, and then try to go file an injunction? So there's a restraining order of sorts to stop it from happening immediately, and he can go play. I've heard 2 different scenarios that's not a possibility with this situation, and it is. Is there a chance, any chance anywhere that we could see Deshaun Watson in those first couple weeks of the season this year?
Yeah, Ryan, I'm a lawyer. I'm a law professor. I'm not a litigation lawyer, so I don't have the true expertise in this. The way I see it is, if Watson's team, which is his individual lawyers and the union, try to take this out of the arbitration system, the one thing I'm sure of is that when it eventually reaches an appeals court, as Brady, as Elliott, as Adrian Peterson, they will lose. They will lose. So whatever happens, before we get to whether he can play week 1, he will eventually lose. That's settled law, because these courts defer to arbitration systems. They don't want to deal with this stuff if it's written in a CBA.
Yeah.
But in terms of whether he can play, the way I look at it is, has his team, his collective bargaining unit, the union, agreed on a 6-game suspension. They put out a statement saying they accept the 6-game suspension. So any preliminary injunction to stop further suspension would start after Game 6. That's the way I read it. I'm sure their lawyers say, well, the new appeal decision, say it's 12 games or 16 games, will replace the 6 games. I don't know if I read it that way.
Right.
But let's see what happens.